What's up, NBA fans? What's up, all sports fans? It's your boy JB, host of the Behind the Bench Podcast Network and channel, giving a shout out to the rest of the crew. And for everyone who's tuning in today, thank you for supporting Behind the Bench. Subscribe to the channel. Help make this show the best that it can be. I want to touch on this right here, man. I want to get right to it. Can't waste time, no time to waste. Now, when a person has a platform, dog, and when they use it for disingenuous means and the purpose of misleading people and to create narratives, they doing a disservice, man. And I'm dead serious. Like our channel here, where we try to do, we ask for input by our supporters, man. Like if I do a video and I may say something that was not accurate and someone comes back and correct me, hey, I love that, man. That's what I want. That's what we want here, man. Cause we don't get all the history right as far as names and dates and all that stuff. But when there's a concerted effort, like these two cats right here in this picture, in this image, and like I say, you don't see this. Man, when Alex Ovechkin broke Wayne Gretzky's career goal scoring record, man, Wayne Gretzky stood up, man. He was in that owner's box or whatnot. He stood up and cheered for Ovechkin, man. But at the same time, Wayne Gretzky is Wayne Gretzky. He's still the great one. That's what sports is about, man. As they say, in a lot of instances, records are made to be broken. But that still don't take away from Gretzky, and it don't take away from what Ovechkin achieved. Because he went out there, man, and he worked hard. He competed. And through time, he was in position to do just that. But when you got these two cats using a podcast, mainly the Guy to the Left podcast, the Hurricane, I'm telling you, we don't see this in football. We don't see this in football, man. We don't see the constant tearing down of past NFL greats or NFL teams or NFL style of play. Because back then, a professional football or football just in of itself was built off of the run game. And then the passing game followed. And the NFL returned back to the run game last year, and your most successful teams during the postseason featured a dominant running game, right? And it was more exciting. It's more battle in the trenches, as they say. You don't see this in baseball, dog. You don't see it in baseball. You do not see this going on in baseball, man. It's just every year you come back, let's try to do it again. Period. End of discussion. This is the only professional sports league where the past is being trashed. Now, this wasn't always the case. This didn't start until about 10 years ago. And they ramping it up around the clock. So now the latest figure that want to step in and join the fray is one Steve Nash. But when he forget, now Steve Nash was drafted by the Dallas Mavericks. I believe he went to Santa Clara University. Do you realize that he was almost out the league within about 8 years of his career? We say about 9 years of his career. And not only until the NBA started to emphasize more freedom of movement, right, did his game start to take off. Go back and look at Steve Nash's stats Go to basketballreference.com. That's the ultimate basketball resource. They update information on the fly after every day, after every game. That's the basketballreference.com. Basketball/reference.com. Go to that. You can find any statistical data ever recorded. Steve Nash was darn. I'm not gonna say he was considered a bust, but his career was waning until they started to change the rules, which emphasized freedom of movement. And then Mike D'Antoni taking over as the head coach of the Phoenix Suns, where he created that offense 7 seconds or less, where within 7 seconds, you taking a shot attempt, right? And that's when Steve Nash's game took off, and he won 2 league MVPs. I had no problem with the first MVP he got in 2005. I wasn't really tripping off that, but the one in 06, many basketball felt that he should not have won that. That should have went to Kobe Bean Bryant. But nonetheless, so he comes in sitting across from the Hurricane, because truth be told, the reason why yesterday and past greats are being trashed is because of this guy right here. To elevate this guy, period. So he says that people are being nostalgic and want the quote unquote old NBA to return. And he said it's not coming back. Now, I'm a fan of Steph Curry. He's played his whole career for Golden State. And I would say he's the greatest player in the history of that franchise, bar none. Then you have the Rick Barrys of the world, and then of course, Wilt Chamberlain. But when the Warriors were in Philadelphia before they moved to California, Wilt Chamberlain was the best player during the Warriors' run in Philadelphia. But as far as Golden State, Steph Curry, then you have the Rick Barrys of the world. That's how I rank it. Steph Curry said the same thing about the All-Star game. Well, we're not going to go back to the past. We got to forge a new frontier. See, this is the problem, dog. This is the problem. They act like the past NBA is like it's underneath them. But the past contributions, the blood, sweat, and tear by those past greats, that's what set the stage. It's like the efforts of the players from the 60s set the stage for the players in the 70s. The effort and play from the 70s set the stage for the 80s. The achievement of the 80s set the stage for the 90s. The growth of the 90s set the stage for the 2000s. And no time during those decades were the previous decades or previous eras trashed. This is deliberate what's going on. And it's all because of that guy to the left. It's because of the Hurricane. He's the root of all of this. Because the forces behind the scenes and these talking heads want him to be viewed as the greatest basketball player ever, and he's not. That's why they have to constantly reinforce this false notion day in and day out, manipulate history day in and day out around the clock. No matter where you turn, it's the same talking points. Well, players, you got one guy on his show where players couldn't shoot. Now, players could shoot. Somebody was putting the ball through the hoop. Now, the issue is they just weren't shooting threes like they shooting today. Now, like I said, man, when I watch a game today, I don't sit here. I really try to focus on who's out there playing for that night. That's it. That's it. Now, you can say there were times where there's too much emphasis on a certain style of play, whether it could be post play, 3-point shooting, or whatnot. But when you have a great balance, you look at the Denver Nuggets and how they won the championship 2 years ago. It was a great balance. They didn't shoot a lot of threes. They shot appropriate threes, but they had great inside play, right? And then you had a guard in Jamal Murray who can break his man down on defense and go off. You know what I'm saying? But everybody played off a Jokic. It was a great balance. And they had a physicality about them too. You know what I'm saying? But what I'm saying is for Steve Nash to join in on this, man, and trash the pass, that's ridiculous because he was drafted in the mid-90s. He was drafted in the mid-90s. You don't hear Jason Kidd trashing the area that he grew up in. He was drafted in he won co-MVP with Grant Hill during the 94-95 season. But Steve Nash's game didn't, quote unquote, it was almost like a brand new Steve Nash was created after the rule changes that emphasized more freedom of movement. It was like this new player was created overnight. It was like, man, where did this guy come from? Because he wasn't playing like that prior to. So what I'm trying to say is this, man. It's a lot of disingenuous commentary being uttered by a lot of cats, man, that the league would do better if they would just stay out the way, dog. Now remember, this the same guy who was given a head coaching job in Brooklyn with no head coaching experience. Just like JJ Redick. Then he comes back and be a guest on this guy's podcast and say this is about nostalgia. No, it ain't about nostalgia. It's not about nostalgia. The main issue that fans from yesterday have about today's NBA, it's not even really about style of play. It's about competition. That's what this is about. Franchise level players, top 10 players, top 5 players joining forces or forcing trades or poaching other franchise players from their own team to help him win. And nothing said about it. That's the issue. It's not about who's shooting the most threes. It's not about whether players are allowed to hand check or not. It's not about that. They make it seem like players relied on hand checking defensively for every possession. Like they didn't move their feet on defense. That's the way they try to make it seem like. I watched the NBA during that time. They would pick their man up full court. When it used to be a 10-second violation to get the ball half court, now it was 8 seconds. If I'm not mistaken, it's 8 seconds. The primary defender guarding the playmaker, they would pick them up full court. Hand checking was mainly done not to so-called cheat, but to maintain leverage on the offensive player, right? To where can the offensive player overcome the leverage that the defender is trying to gain on them defensively? Can they overcome that? It wasn't considered a cheat tactic. You saw players in high school do it, college, out on the playground. I didn't hear cats complain about hand checking in. Because if you could score someone hand checking you, that just makes you even more confident. We've heard a superstar player say over the past couple of years that he complained about being double teamed. Well, your top scorers back then always faced double teams. So what I'm saying is this, man. This is what's going on right now in the NBA. And what's crazy is they make it seem like that the predominant voices covering the NBA today or debate about the NBA are figures or players from yesterday. The genuine voices are basically being eschewed and casted out. The remaining voices that have the platform to talk about the NBA are relatively fresh faces. And what I noticed too, players who never really won. Players who never really won. And they had their own agenda to make them feel, I guess, to compensate for the fact that they wasn't as successful as they wanted to be. And as a result, they are lowering the bar, using the past as a catalyst to elevate their own voice and so-called relevance. But in the end, the history is the history no matter what they try to say or what they try to do. And all this is going to happen, they're going to set themselves up to eventually, they're going to set themselves up, man, to where they riding the wave now. But as I say, the wave eventually turns into a tidal wave. And they're going to drown under their own disingenuous commentary and narratives because it's not going to hold up versus the actual history of the game. You've had an era of fast break. You had an era of big man. You had an era of, it was said, traditionally that a two guard couldn't lead a team to a championship. Or they once said that you couldn't lead the league in scoring and win a championship, where you had a basketball player who disproved that notion, and we've had so many different representations of basketball, but the key component that carries the lead, that has carried the lead to the success that we have witnessed over time, it was superstars competing against each other. That's the issue. It's not about nostalgia. And for Steve Nash to come on this guy's show and join it on the fray, that just speaks to the current state of the NBA when it comes to how it is being interpreted. And it's sad and it's tragic what's going on in this league. And I'm telling you, if it ever folds, if the league ever folds, I'm not saying that it will. If it ever did, because they're not elevating the sport when they do this. They're not elevating the sport. The All-Star game is crumbling for a reason. The All-Star game was at its apex, or will I say the All-Star game was the All-Star game in the past because of the competition, the players understanding what the All-Star game represented, the pride that the players had in representing their team, representing their city, representing their conference, representing the league as a whole. So I think what's going on is, man, they're trying to eradicate the past to make it seem like the NBA started in the year 2010. And ultimately, it's not going to work. So why don't these guys just get out the way? Get out the way. And a lot of these players, man, that have been sucked into this notion that this player empowerment is the best thing that ever happened in the NBA. I hate to say this, man. These players need to retire, dog. I'm dead serious, man. Because they holding the league back. They holding the league back. And it's time to let this game move forward, man. I'm talking about truly moving forward. And a lot of these toxic voices on the airwaves, man, spewing this nonsense, trashing on the past. What good are they providing for the league? What good are they providing for people to really? Because they're really misleading millions and millions of people. And it's mainly young people who's tuning and listen to these guys. These guys with these podcasts, man, they have agendas, man. Because a lot of them really don't know about the history of the game. They have anybody can Google some information, but they don't know about the history of the game, where it got from point A to point B, then point B to point C to point D. That's what's missing. That's what's missing. Before Steve Nash come on there, man, and spew that nonsense, dog, and join it on the fray, he just set himself up. He just set himself up. It don't make no sense, man. It don't make no sense. It's not going on in any sport, any other sports league. You're never going to see this in baseball, because the historians are going to make sure that don't happen. And these other sports leagues, believe me, they looking at how the NBA history is being tarnished and trash and thrown under the bus, and they just gonna double down and say, you know what, this is never gonna happen to us. It's never gonna happen to us. I don't care what problems we have. So I just want to throw it out there, man. I'm cool on Steve Nash, dog, what he talking about, because he joining in with the Hurricane. And when you do that, that's a lose-lose. At the end of the day, you gonna lose. Look what's happening to Isaiah Thomas. All these years, over the past, 7-8 years, man, he been, crapping on Jordan. Like I said, Isaiah Thomas is an all-time great. He had the heart of a lion. When he retired, consensus-wise, he was considered the greatest player in league history for a player at his size. 2-time NBA champion, Isaiah Thomas had the respect. He went out there and played on that busted ankle, Game 6 of the '88 Finals between the Pistons and the Lakers, and he scored 25 points in that third quarter, most points ever scored in one quarter in NBA championship history. And he was the leader of that team. He got the respect, and people always said he belonged. He deserved to be on that dream team. But the problem is, man, he been trying to trash Jordan and tarnish Jordan all these years to try to get back at him, but you can't get back at Jordan because the history is the history. So he made a recent comment about LBJ. I think people that's been following the NBA over the past week kind of know what he said. And now fans of the Hurricane are attacking him to no end. All the way from here to Kingdom Come. That's why I say, when you ride that wave, man, that wave gonna come back and ride on you, and it ain't gonna be pretty. So I want to throw it out there, man. And like I said, man, I really never had no issue with Steve Nash. Never had no issue with him, man. At the end of the day, for him to sit there and say that and crap on the past and say that we living in nostalgia, it ain't about nostalgia. It's not about style of play per se. It's about competition. That's all fans from yesterday want to see, is what we grew up watching back then. What sports is built on. Not manipulation. Not trying to gain unfair player advantages. Not trying to manipulate the system to gain that advantage. Go out there and prove it. If you the GOAT, go out there and prove it. That's all we want. So I just want to throw it out there real quick, man. I think this whole thing is tired and played out, dog. Trashing the past like that. It's the only sport that's doing it, man, because they know what it is, man. What it is, they not maintaining the standard, dog. That's what it is. They not maintaining the standard. What we mean by that, man, we ain't saying you got to be the GOAT. You ain't got to be the GOAT or the greatest ever to be respected and remembered in a positive way or to make a positive contribution to the game. You can be an unheralded player. You can be a role player. Robert Horry was a role player. But he went down as one of the best clutch shooters in playoff history. He has some of the biggest shots ever. That's why they call him Big Shot Rob. You see what I'm saying? There's many colorful figures in the league, man, who are unsung heroes of the game. No, this dude want to be the GOAT. And what's sad is he's not. And it's bringing the league down. And it's not fair. It's not fair what's going on, dog. And I'm going to tell you, Michael Jordan, in all the years that I watched him play, and I'm talking about from his college years, representing the United States. He represented the United States of America in 1984 during the Olympics. Throughout his whole entire NBA career, I never felt one time that Michael Jordan felt that he was bigger than the game. Not one time. And when I mean not one time, I mean not one time. But a lot of players out here, man, because of this front that's being posed, they feel that they're superior. There's a difference between feeling superior and proving to be better. See, the Hurricane feel he's superior. That's the problem, dog. But the resume don't show up, dog. And that's what this really is about, and it's sad. But as they say, at some point, everybody got to come home at some point. Everybody got to come home at some point. So I just want to drop that nugget. Please leave comments and thoughts. Until next time, this is JB, BTB, Behind the Bench.